Welcome to Audible Sportscast, your home for all things sports. Welcome back to Audible Sportscast. Jeff here, and I have a surprising guest with me today. He's back from a long hiatus. Cody, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Any day I get to talk about football is a good day. So, as I suggested, let's talk about football. You know, we're going into week 6, almost to that halfway point. We're not quite there yet, but it's been a good NFL season so far. There's been a couple surprises. There's been, kind of stuff we expected, and I don't know. I love watching every single game that I get to watch, even if it's what some people call a boring game. The Broncos-Colts game, a lot of people hated, but I enjoyed that game. It was good defense, but just bad offense. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely I don't know if it was a game of defense or just horrendous QB play.
A little bit of both, but mostly probably the QB play. But let's get straight into it. Start with our normal fantasy football kind of advice we give. You weren't here last week, but last week I gave some horrible fantasy advice. I told people to start Romeo Doubs, and, well, he laid an egg in England, to say the least. Only put up, 5 points? But my sit was pretty good. Brent and I both told people to sit Matt Stafford, and, well, he only put up 10 points. That's pretty good. And if you're in a league where you lose points for sacks, you probably lost a little, or he didn't even get 10 points. So depending on how your league's set up, you could have done even worse sitting or starting him. So hopefully you sat him. But this week we have new people to start and sit. Cody, what do you got for me?
So my big start this week is Melvin Gordon.
Okay.
It will be surprising to a lot of people because of he isn't really trustworthy, but with all his fumbles. But this week he's playing the Chargers, which happens to be the worst run defense in the NFL right now. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game for him.
I definitely agree with that. We've seen not only are the Chargers a bad run defense, but the Broncos are in a situation where they need something to get going, and a good way to start showing some success is starting to run the football. So that's, I feel like, an easy way. And they kind of did that a little bit near the end of the game with the Colts. They seem to be running it a little bit better. Should have relied on it a little bit more on those close downs there. And in overtime, they maybe could have won it if they didn't try passing it with Russ. Who knows? But I agree. Melvin Gordon could be a good start this week. A lot of people were worried about his fumbling last week. He didn't fumble once, so hopefully he can keep that going. And yeah, I can see that. But start this week, I got J.K. Dobbins. He hasn't had the best points so far since he's came back from injury, other than the 1 week he had 2 rushing touchdowns. But we've seen him still continue to get these carries, and with a running back, it just takes a little bit to get going again. And we're starting to get to that point where we're seeing a potential, the offensive line's kind of coming back healthy. Ronnie Stanley, last week was his first game back. He's going to get more he's going to get more snaps. J.K. Dobbins is going to be utilized more and more in that offense. And, as long as you have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback, it's going to be a deadly run attack. And they're going against the Giants this week, who are kind of like the Chargers, not the best run defense. So it is setting up well for a breakout J.K. Dobbins game where you don't have to rely on touchdowns. But we'll see.
Yeah, I like him for deeper leagues, but I don't know.
Yeah, well,
that offense scares me for running backs.
I so far this year, definitely. Even kind of looking at years prior, there's not been a reliable RB kind of one for that system since I guess Mark Ingram a couple years ago was a decent RB1 for the team, not necessarily for fantasy, but we'll see if you're in a not so deep league where you can kind of keep him on your bench depending on who your starters are, do it, kind of play it safe. But this could be a week where hey, maybe J.K. Dobbins could be a reliable flex starter or RB2 for you.
Yeah, I'd say definitely a flex, but if you need him as a running back, two, I mean, if you need him as a one, you might as well start him, yeah.
True. Plus, this is the first week now with buys. Buys become a factor, so if you're going back and forth on some guys maybe to put into your spots for, depending on who you have on a buy, he could be a guy you put into that rotation for the week. And then for my sit, it's a very questionable one, but I'm not a fan of his line or his matchup. CeeDee Lamb. We saw it a little bit last week going against that Rams passing defense where he didn't get super high yards or touches. And I think, going against, I would easily argue a lot better defense right now. That secondary with Darius Slay, CJ Johnson, James Bradbury is looking really good and has kept quite a bit of receivers at low tally marks. So we'll see, but that's a potential sit I have this week.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. That secondary for the Eagles, that's how many yards do they hold Justin Jefferson to?
I want to say, I don't even want to say 40.
I can't recall, but yeah, I don't see him having a very good game. But for my sit, I have James Robinson against the Colts defense. Actually, I don't trust either of the running backs against them. Both of them have largely underperformed the last 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks actually. I was going to say 2. It's actually 3. And the Colts are actually... Their run defense is good, and they're holding the running backs to near to none yards a carry. A very low average amount of yards. So I don't like James Robinson this week at all.
Not to mention, James Robinson had a really great game against them earlier in the year. So you kind of feel like this could be a game where the Colts point a lot of their focus to James Robinson, since he's kind of the man that took control of the game last time. And you could see them definitely putting a lot of interest into stopping the run with James Robinson this week. And just being a kind of a revenge game in general. Just kind of, they got shut out last time. Let's shut, the Jags out at home. So we'll see. It could be an interesting game. I agree a little bit with the James Robinson. I went back and forth on him, but I would say you definitely sit him this week if you can sit him. Obviously, running backs are not the most abundant thing, so you gotta do what you gotta do. But that's just kind of our little bit of advice we want to give you. And as always, if you have any fantasy advice, hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, any of our socials. They're always linked below the video or wherever you listen to this podcast. But moving on. Give a little bit of our games to watch this week. There's a lot of good games this week, I would say. I thought last week had a lot of good games. This week, oh my gosh. Speaking of last week, me alone in my 3 games, I picked to watch and 2 to win. I went 3-0. Puts my season totals to 8-4 on the year for my games of the week. Brett, who isn't here, he went 2-1. He's 5-7. But Cody, you haven't been able to give anyone some games this year. So what do you got for this week to watch, and who's going to win them?
My top game, I have the Cowboys and Eagles.
I have that game too.
Yeah, top. That conference, or division actually, it's actually very exciting to watch this year. Yeah, so it's kind of tough to say who's going to win this game, but I actually have the Cowboys. Yeah, they have a very good defense. The Eagles do, but honestly, hey, Cooper Rush undefeated still, so and he's supposed to play.
Who is going to lose their winning streak first, the Eagles or the Cowboys? And you think it's the Eagles?
The Eagles are Cooper Rush, so.
Oh yeah, that's my bad.
They almost lost to the Cardinals last week.
Yeah, there's some question marks on that one.
What's his name? Amendola.
Yeah, Matt Amendola missed. Well, that would have taken it to.
Yeah.
Or no, yeah, that would have taken it. But still, any given Sunday, as I always like to say. And yeah, I have that game too. I think it's going to be a fun game. We're finally, this is really the first game between. Oh, I guess Cowboys Giants was a really fun game, an NFC East game. But this is the second game, then, I guess, where we're seeing this really tough NFC East divisional games. I'm not counting any of the Commanders games because the Commanders are not good. So I kept going back and forth on this game, and I think for me it kind of came down to just overall line depths. And while the Cowboys offensive line has looked not too bad, I have to go with the Eagles at home. I don't want to. I felt like they were even going to lose last week. I mean, I'm not a big fan of picking teams kind of on these long streaks, but of course both of these teams, if you count Cooper Rush, are on these kind of long winning streaks. But I got to go Eagles, at home, prime time. I think they're even wearing, if I believe, they're wearing their black jerseys. I'm not too sure on that, but...
So my thing with this matchup is this is the Eagles' toughest defense they've played yet this year.
Oh, definitely.
So I think this is going to be their biggest challenge.
I agree.
This is a Sunday night game, isn't it?
I know it's one of the primetime games, but yes, I believe it is. Yes, it is the Sunday night game because one of the games I'll talk about later is not a primetime game for some reason.
Yeah, so that's even better. So, yeah, I think I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. I think it's going to be within a field goal, but I have the Cowboys.
I definitely think it'll be a close game, and for betting people, the spread right now is 6.5 for the Eagles. So if anyone wants to see it being a close game, definitely put a little bit into that. But yeah, I like how we're doing something a little different with this game because this is kind of a game I could see going either way. But when it comes to games I see going either way, kind of gotta go with the home team.
Are the Cowboys them boys or them boys?
No, they haven't been since the 90s, I would say. But this kind of goes into my next game, talking about really close games that can go either way. I have a matchup that we get every year, and it always lives up to the hype. I don't know if it'll live up to the hype that it had in the playoffs last year, but Bills versus Chiefs.
Yeah, but that's my second one too.
Potential game of the year right there. I mean, you have two of the best offenses going against each other with two teams that also have pretty good defenses that have had their moments, but can still put, any team into potential spots. But at the same time, especially with the Chiefs, they've had some high-scoring opponents. So this is a game, I'll talk about it later, but high-scoring game, and it's going to be like every other time these two teams play. Whoever has the ball last, probably going to win it. And we saw last week on Monday night, the Chiefs, no matter what situation they're in, they can come back from anything. Will they be able to do something like that against the Buffalo Bills? I don't know. The Bills kind of right now are struggling with injuries, which worries me a little bit. And with that, and the fact the Chiefs are playing at home, I got to go Chiefs.
So, yeah, I agree. This is my second game, too. But I honestly have the Bills because the Chiefs' pass defense is not good at all.
I agree.
And with Gabriel Davis back and healthy, who is the long shot, blow over the top receiver, and then you got Diggs. I don't know. I think they're gonna. I don't. It's obviously not gonna be a blowout, but I wouldn't be surprised.
It's gonna be fun.
I wouldn't be surprised if Gabriel Davis has another big game like he did last week, which that could be a good start this week too. But he's very unpredictable, so I don't know.
That's true. And you also had to think he was kind of the man in that playoff game against them last year. You know, he was the one that scored, what, 2 of the last 3 touchdowns for the Bills, I believe?
Yeah, he played really good in all the playoff games.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of similar to the James Robinson stuff I talked about earlier. That could be something they kind of pinpoint, so it could be potentially, I mean, no matter what the Bills do, it's going to be, you know, someone's going to get the ball a lot between Diggs and, I mean, they're in an offense where both those guys can easily put up big points no matter what. It's going to be fun. The pass defense.
So I know it's only week 6, but Buffalo's still second against the pass. And I know it's Mahomes and everything, but that alone has me picking the Bills.
You're a very persuasive person. I'm feeling like I need a switch, but I'm going to stick with my gut here. My gut's normally 50-50, so why change it? You know, a statistic tell me I should stick with it.
It's football. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, I say this every single week, any given Sunday, anything can happen. This could be a blowout either way. This could be a close game and, you know, last person to have the ball. I mean, normally when these two teams play, it is the last person to have the ball wins it. But we'll see. These are exciting games. And then for my final game of the week, I got a game where I just kind of want to see what goes on. Both of these teams kind of riding high, and I just want to see what's going to go on. And that's the Ravens-Giants.
Okay. I have a different game, but
this has kind of been an unpredictable year for the Giants, and every week I kind of be like, okay, this is a new challenge for them. I want to see how they kind of show out. And against the Packers in London, they did what they had to do to win it coming back. And then with the Ravens, we know kind of what the Ravens are, this really good team. Somewhat. I mean, there's still questions in the secondary. They kind of shut out against the Bengals, which they kind of needed. But, you know, kind of like what we talked about earlier, there is questions with that run offense. So this could be a really fun game to see kind of what the Giants are about and if the Ravens can keep going with what they got. And I think they do. I'm going to take the Ravens to win this game. It's going to be a fun game. I just think it's going to be a fun game, and it's going to come down to how well Daniel Jones can play. And he's been playing really good this year, and he's definitely earning his paycheck, or he will be earning himself a very new paycheck. But what do you got for your game?
All right, I want to talk about your game just a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
There's a lot of games here this week that are actually better matchups than what they seem.
I agree.
Or not better matchups, but better games. Baltimore's run defense is pretty middle tiered, and then you got Saquon Barkley on the Giants offense. I think he's going to have a really good game. Probably 25 points plus fantasy-wise, but yeah, I agree. I don't think the Giants are going to win this one. I think their streak's going to get shut down this week.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because this has been an amazing year for them. But hey, this will only be their second loss this season. There's still much more to go, and who knows? Maybe we see the Giants in the playoffs. I mean, it looks like that.
I think we will.
I mean, the what Brian Daboll has been able to do, and that entire coaching staff has been able to do with this turnaround, with really not bringing in that much when you look at kind of draft capital or kind of free agent wise. I mean, it's one of the most expensive teams for kind of, especially when you look at how much it was used last year. I mean, Kenny Galladay's making $25 million, I think, this year, and he's not even starting. So like, it's amazing what they're doing with what they have. I mean, obviously Saquon's the focal point, but you can't. I mean, we've seen it with a lot of teams kind of this year. You can't win just off of running the ball. So it's really amazing how they kind of interpret everything else, whether that's getting Daniel Jones into the run game to help win them games, or with the minimal receivers they have, being able to get them open enough to win games. I mean, we saw in London that they had to do the little Philly special to get them a kind of touchdown to bring them into that game. So it's just amazing to see what, amazingly, whether that's offensive or defensive minded coaches can do to help, put these teams, to help them go from worst to first, or even just, these middle tier teams to be putting in games where a lot of people don't even think they have a chance in. It's amazing, and I love every year when we have these teams, whether that's, this year with the Giants, last year was the Cincinnati Bengals, a couple of years ago it was the 49ers, putting in everything they got, over the years, finally getting that Super Bowl team they had. It's just, I love it.
Sure, it'll be a good week.
Oh, definitely.
But for my game of the Cardinals and Seahawks,
that'll be a good game.
It will. It's actually going to be very high scoring, and I think Kyler Murray, I think he's going to have a good game playing against the Seahawks defense, who is very favorable to pass against and run. So, and then you got Geno Smith on the other side, which the Cardinals are very favorable to pass against too. So it's going to be a very high-scoring game. Geno Smith is very impressive. I shouldn't have dropped him in fantasy, but I did.
If it makes you feel better, a couple years ago I dropped Derrick Henry in like week 2 or 3 of the season. Before he was King Henry, but I think it was that year that he kind of started his amazing run. But if that makes you feel better for dropping Geno.
But, yeah, the way Geno torched the Saints defense, some of his passes are just beautiful. And
some of them not so much.
No.
But he's been keeping them in games.
His last interception was week 3, and he still had 19 points fantasy-wise, 325 yards. So I like Geno Smith against this matchup, but I also like Kyler. Next week, D-Hop comes back, so.
That's true. But the only thing that – well, who do you have winning this game?
Who do I have winning? This one's tough for me, actually. This is the one I did not determine a winner, but I'm going to have to say the Seahawks on this one.
I would have to agree with you on that, mostly because, one, not only they're playing at home, but when you look at these divisional games, these teams play each other 2 times a year, so they know each other really well. And Geno Smith is kind of that new guy for this team. So, how much is that going to be a factor? He's kind of helping this team a lot. They don't know him that well. That could play a lot. But at the same time, it'll be interesting to see how they are able to run the ball. Kenneth Walker's now kind of the RB1. Rashad Penny went down. So that's kind of the thing I'd be watching the most. They drafted him in the second round. Is he going to be another one of those second-round rookies, running backs from the Big Ten to kind of show up? Obviously, thinking of Jonathan Taylor with those kind of things. He had an amazing college career. Let's see if he can step it up. Now he's RB1. It'll be interesting to see how he does in his first, kind of week as the starting running back.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker's, I like him. He's a big start fantasy-wise this year. Or not this year, this week. He could be this year. We'll see. But it's kind of in question what he's going to do. But I think, that's a big plus for the Seahawks. And the Cardinals are actually missing 2 of the running back 1 and 2 this week. So now you got blanking on his last name. Dude.
Oh, Benjamin? Yeah.
Yeah. They got him starting. So, at least
he's showed some signs. Yeah, I'm not too sure on that. But
don't get me wrong. I think he looks good, but I like Kenneth Walker better, and I think they're going to have the run game and the pass game. So,
The more I'm actually thinking about it too, this is the time they did play good against the Eagles. How can they keep that up? Actually get a win this time. And how many wins can really the Cardinals get? Now is their time to be winning games. Call of Duty Modern Warfare comes out here in like a month, so this is really their time to win before Kyler has to go play video games. So, we'll see. But
yeah, it's not. These are my top 3 games because they're going to be really close and high scoring, in my opinion. So
yeah,
it's a toss up for most of these. Other than
other than really none of them, they're all kind of. You made a good point about the Bills, but that's a fun thing about why we pick these games. We don't pick them because we know this team's going to win. We pick these games mostly because we want you guys to watch these games. These are the games to watch, not necessarily, and we're just picking them because we want to kind of show up. Hey, we told you.
Yeah, and it's easy to say back to the Bills game, like, yeah, the Bills defense is second against the passing. Well, guess what? The Chiefs offense is the number 2. So against defenses. So
yeah, statistics can only show so much, but statistics are statistics. Math is right most of the time, unless there's always those outliers. That outliers happen, and they will always happen. And yeah, but moving on, a little bit of stuff I feel like we should talk about. So I feel like we talk about this every year at some point, whether that's once or twice in the season. And the Green Bay Packers now won in overtime against a third-string quarterback at home against the Patriots, and then go to London and lose to a Giants team. People are still questioning, that we don't know for sure what the Giants are, but a lot of us thought we knew what the Packers are. Should we be worried at this point now that the Packers, 1, offense has not been consistent, and 2, their defense has not looked good almost whatsoever, other than really the Buccaneers game? And that game, you can argue there's a lot of injured wide receivers. It's hard to take that game kind of as it was. But kind of my question for you, Cody, or whoever's listening, should we be worried about the Packers?
Definitely. They have no clear 1, 2, or 3 receiver. No one knows who anyone is on that offense, other than the running backs and Rodgers. I don't even think he knows who he is anymore. But that defense is not very impressive. They were supposed to be one of the top defenses going into this year, and they're getting scored on. But that could probably has to do with being on the field all the time. Top defenses will look horrible. Like, look at the Colts. The Colts are doing really good, but years past, they've underperformed in some games because of being on the field with Wentz's turnovers and poor decisions later in the year. So
yeah, I agree. Plus,
it's time to worry about them.
I kind of agree a little bit. For the most part, only I'm worried because they don't know who they are yet. I said this earlier in the year that this Packers team has to rely a lot more on the run game, and then they go into a game where I feel like they were running it pretty well. Both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon were averaging around 5 yards a carry, and even with I feel like maybe they could have given the ball to them a little bit more. A.J. Dillon had 6 carries. Give him the ball more. I feel like they need to emphasize this team with very little kind of a true as you mentioned, a wide receiver 1, 2, or even 3. Randall Cobb kind of as showing up a little bit more these last 2 games. But you need to focus more on the run game. And you see they didn't do that late in the game against the Giants, and look at what happened. They tried passing it. The defensive linemen just put their hands up. They're ready for those quick, batted balls. Aaron Rodgers had troubles throwing it deep, which is weird because he's one of the best deep ball throwers in the game. So with them not relying as much as I feel like they need to be in the run game, and even Aaron Rodgers have even said it after their loss against the Vikings. He comes on the Pat McAfee show every week. He said they need to give both AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones the ball. They need to give him each of them about 15 carries a game, and I feel like that is a good way for them to win. And they've struggled to do that, I think, now 2 weeks in a row. And they've been in really close games where you can argue that maybe they shouldn't have been. And I think a lot of it comes down to they're not utilizing these amazing running backs they have as much as they should be.
Yeah, they've been since week one. Week one was the last time. I take that back. He was used heavily. All right. So he's been underutilized. AJ Dillon has been very underutilized, which is beyond me. And he's a great running back. He's like one of your few assets on the offense. Why would you not use him? Put them on the field at the same time, Kind of like the Colts.
They do that quite a bit, and when they do, they succeed in whether that's if it goes to them or not, because they see both those guys on the field. Hey, one of them is probably going to get the ball, and then that opens up almost anything. But carry on what you're saying. Sorry.
Like how the Colts, what they need to do with Nyheim Hines, and they said, oh yeah, we're gonna make him or put him out in the slot a lot. Yeah, I've yet to see that consistently. I've seen it like a couple times maybe, but put one of them at slot. I know Jones is the better receiving back, but they both can catch. So.
Yeah, I agree, and even if they're not the best receiving back, even putting them out there, do a quick screen, run jet sweeps, the amount of things you can do with having two good running backs on the field at once, whether they're both on the same side. I mean, look at what the Cowboys are doing. Maybe both of the guys don't get the amount of touches they should be, but they're finding ways to utilizing both Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard in pretty creative ways, whether that's lining Tony Pollard up at wide receiver on a play, or that's bringing, on short down situations, they bring Ezekiel Elliott to look more like a fullback and then do a little quick, act like they're going to sweep it out on one side and just give a quick dive to Ezekiel Elliott to pick up they did that, I believe, against the Rams this week or last week. With a lot of these teams that have arguably two different running backs, a lot of them are two good running backs. I feel like a lot of them struggle to be able to get them both the balls. And how much of that is because they're in more passing situations or whatnot. But I feel like a good team, especially when you're looking at later in the year, gets colder, you want that good running game. I mean, that's how the 49ers have always been that really good team. Yes, they have all these weapons to pass to, but we see Deebo Samuel used as a running back, and that was very effective in the postseason. We saw just whoever they put at running back for all the years, whether it's Mostert, now it's Jeff Wilson, just they get the ball and they're creatively able to get them the ball. And I think the Packers just need to do that more. And yes, the defense is struggling, but Jair isn't 100%. There's a lot of things that can go differently. As a Bears fans, I'm not worried about them at all. I hope they don't win games. But as just a sports fan, I'm definitely worried about them. But I feel like they could easily switch it up. I mean, as long as Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback and as long as they get those two guys the ball, they'll be fine. And also with them running it a lot, that allows them to open it up for these receivers that kind of lack either the experience or just time. Good play action teams will always have success.
I agree.
But moving on real quickly, kind of running out of time here, but something that happened this week, our first coach firing of the year, Matt Rule for the Carolina Panthers was fired, and a lot of people are happy about it. I think that should have happened midway through the season last year, but he's fired now. And the thing that's kind of interesting, now that he's fired, a lot of these people I see, whether that's on Twitter or talking, on ESPN or whatever, are saying that the Carolina Panthers need to be this fire sale team and just trading all of their stuff to these teams. And whether that's DJ Moore, the wide receiver, Brian Burns, who's kind of on an expiring contract, or whoever else they feel like their team needs, I don't know if I like that.
Christian McCaffrey, have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. There's rumors the Bills were big on him.
Yeah, that one was actually looking serious.
It was. There was reports that the Panthers have not fielded any calls about any of their guys, or no one's asked about. I don't exactly remember what the final report that came out about that the other day. But other than, I mean, even McCaffrey, if used right, I don't know if it's a good idea to be just trading away all these guys.
It's not. They wouldn't really get that much for him anyways.
No, one, DJ Moore is on a pretty hefty contract, so they'd have to take a lot of dead weight for that.
He's been nowhere other than Carolina and really hasn't been a standout receiver since he's been there.
And I mean, when you're looking at, a new, coach to come in, or obviously they'll be looking to get a new quarterback by the time the season ends, whether that's through the draft, if there's a free agent. I mean, Lamar Jackson still needs a contract, so who knows? But if you want a guy, if they do the free agent route or trade for somebody, you're gonna want these pieces to surround them with. So why would they even feel like they need to trade anybody? You want a good basis to get, whether a head coach to want to come here or a quarterback. You just want these pieces here, and I mean, obviously they're probably not going to trade anybody, but I just feel like it's kind of stupid for these people to just think, oh, their coach is fired, automatic fire sale. No. I mean, that has happened in the past before, but most of the time people traded at the deadline are, for the most part, older guys on expiring contracts who just won out of bad situations. And, I mean, Brian Burns isn't that old, but he's kind of the corner piece of that defense. But guys like DJ Moore, no, he's on a brand new contract, and they're going to want to keep guys there. They have, I would argue, not that bad a defense, but we'll see.
Yeah, their secondary is pretty solid. I know Horn went down. I don't know the status on him, but
Jeremy Chin, a guy they drafted not too long ago, he hasn't been playing that much this season, but he's kind of a dude. I can't think of anybody else that kind of hurts that point, but
yeah.
I mean, there's guys there, and if you're a team that's going to be rebuilding, you want to build around that and turn it into a quick rebuild, like what we talked about earlier with the 49ers. They were just missing a couple pieces, like a quarterback, and then they get Nick Bosa in the draft, and look at that, they're in the Super Bowl. Talking about the Bengals, Burrow healthy, getting him a true weapon. Obviously they need a little bit more, but you get them the right quarterback, the right head coach, the Panthers can easily turn it around, especially since, one, the Saints are struggling. The Falcons, who knows with the Falcons? They're a team that, keeps in these games, but I don't know if they really have a future plan, especially, who knows? And then as soon as Brady retires for the second time and hopefully doesn't come back, or I go back and forth on that. But if he, retires, doesn't come back, who knows with the Bucs? So this could be a perfect time. Hey, let's Panthers rebuild, keep what we got, but just add a little bit more in the next season or two. They could easily be on the top of that division.
Yeah, I've never really liked Carolina as a franchise.
Well, they've been around for almost a little bit longer than we've been alive, so they don't really have that rich history to kind of go back at. I mean, they were, I believe, in the playoffs their first or second year ever in existence, but there's not a lot there.
Yeah, they're barely older than the Texans.
Yeah, I believe the Texans was 2000, somewhere between 2000 and 2003, and then
I thought the Texans were created in 2000.
It might have been. It's somewhere in there. But I know the Jags and the Panthers were in 97, I want to say. 96, 97, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, these are, I mean, just young franchises.
Yeah, and they've all made very stupid decisions.
Yeah, well, what franchise hasn't?
Yeah. Jags had one good season the last 10 years.
You can extend that range a little
20
bit,
years.
probably. I mean, the early 2000s, they were okay. I mean, they had, Fred Jones and whatnot, but not Fred Jones, Fred Taylor. My gosh. I'm sorry, Fred Taylor, if you're listening to this. I know you're not, but I'm sorry.
2017 when they should have beat the Pats, but didn't.
Then you thank the refs for that, and then they go from worst to first, back to worst right after that.
That's when you have a bad franchise.
Yep.
Should not happen.
It should not. That's all we kind of got for you today, though. I'll have some, actually, if you check this out the night it comes out, I'll have some kind of bets for you too on the Twitter, or I'll even post them on Instagram. But that's all we got. Make sure you also follow us on those Twitters and Instagrams. Everything will be linked below. Make sure like, comment, subscribe, feedback, all those fancy things. Make sure you do those things. And just, hey, have a good weekend. Enjoy the sports. Enjoy life. And don't make bad decisions. Have a good weekend, everybody.
I'll see you.
Thanks for listening to Audible Sportscast, your home for all things sports.